Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. This is Drew Dosek with Verified Investing. And today I want to go over, we had the Fed minutes released at 2 o'clock. The Fed minutes, they didn't really provide any headwinds for the market, although the Fed minutes revealed that the Fed is definitely concerned about tariffs reigniting inflation. Those inflation concerns are going to be front and center moving forward. But like I said, nothing really happened in the market once those minutes were released. However, then the Trump administration came out and said chip designed software will be halted for sales to China. That rocked the market. Synopsys did drop following that news. We're going to jump into that chart and show you some support levels here in a little bit. But let's get to the markets and some data to go over some of the details that happened today. Here in the market summary, as you see here, we have the Dow Jones that is now falling down 0.76%, NASDAQ down 0.27%, S&P 500 down 0.65%. U.S. oil having a nice day, up 0.85%. Gold is flat, down 0.09%, and Bitcoin is under just a slight pressure, down 1.71%. Now into a broader heat map, I wanted to display this to kind of give you a better overall picture of the S&P 500 and all of the components involved in that index. So you see here, Microsoft's down ever so slightly. Meta is up ever so slightly. Google is down slightly too. So most generally, the market has been somewhat sideways today until that announcement this afternoon when Trump did say that we were going to halt the chip design software sales into China. So one has to derive and think there too. What's that going to do to NVIDIA, guys? You know, NVIDIA's earnings coming up shortly today after the bell. NVIDIA seemed to champion this sort of move with the administration, but we'll see what this is going to do with investors and how they're thinking, because other stocks like Synopsys just completely tanked when that news hit. So let's get back into some charts. As we see here and checked over, there's a lot of red. There's also some green hidden in there too. Overall, though, it was mainly a sideways day on the spiders until the very end of the day. And you see here on the daily pattern on the spiders, we've had price move up and then bounce down or drop down, and then since bounce right back up, trying to get back and touch these highs that were made here on May 19th. So far, what I see, guys, this is having a lot of difficulty right here, and the headwinds continue to pile up. So with this new announcement, with us restricting sales to China, that also tells me, I'm reading between the lines, probably the tariff negotiations aren't going as well as thought. So in the near future, we could have some issues with tariffs resurfacing, and then also with inflation concerns that follow that too. So I see a lot of pressure on the markets right here. The likelihood that we will come back down, at least test the top end of this parallel channel, seems to be high. And into the 10-minute chart to kind of show you what I was talking about for today. Here we opened higher and then proceeded to sell off, try to get back above that horizontal trend line that we've been following over the last several days. Didn't make it, tried again, and then failed. And then this is when that news came out about halting those design software for chips to China. So this was a big move, at least towards the end of the day. We'll see if the market forgets about it, if NVIDIA has blockbuster earnings after the bell. Into the Qs. The Qs here made a remarkable recovery, moving back up into this bullish consolidation area. But much like the spiders, this could end up failing if we have further selling pressure, especially if NVIDIA does not meet their expectations for earnings. Resistance level, if we move up, 525.03, but the support I'm watching on the area beneath is at 493.46. Into the SMH. SMH also mainly had a chop day, nice move up above this trend line, but then failed to confirm above that trend line today. All the while, this trend line still is going to be the area of contention and resistance on this chart until we get back above it, confirm, and then can move up to 260.05. Bad earnings on NVIDIA will pull SMH down to this 232.37 area for the next spot of support. Into the IWM. The IWM, as we see here, we were trying to get back above this declining trend line and have since failed. You see here today, a very nice attempt, move up, but then got rejected and is chopping sideways. So what you want to see for the small cap stocks is for price to really maintain in this kind of wedge where price action is right now. We want to see it contained in that area over the coming days. If so, we have a greater possibility of breaking out. Next resistance at 214.38. If we do continue to fall from this trend line, 195.46 is going to be that support area on the charts. Into Bitcoin. Now, one thing that was a major development today, you see this vertical trend line that I've got here, this diagonally shaped trend line right here. Price action now with Bitcoin has begun to break trend. This area right here, the 50% area of this parallel, 106,670, will be the first area of support. But with us now breaking trend, we'll see what Bitcoin does in the coming days. If this starts to snowball and accelerate selling, we could have buying opportunities present themselves on Bitcoin. First level support down here at 101,680. Followed by the bottom end of this parallel channel at $97,000. But all the while this can be broken out of still, this is still a mark against Bitcoin as that trend has now changed. Into the weekly chart, though, you can see not much has changed. So we still need more data and more prints on the screen for us to fully say that Bitcoin has broken trend. We'll need to see a confirmation underneath today's candle. So watch where price closes tonight at 8 o'clock to give you an idea where that price point will be. Into gold. Gold did just chop sideways today. Not too much to report on gold, still maintaining price underneath this declining top end of the parallel channel. That is the area to beat. Currently going to be around $3,300. Area of support is going to be right down here at 31.73 on gold. Silver's doing quite well today, still chopping sideways, putting in more bullish consolidation. And as long as it maintains right here, we've got a good shot of moving higher. The main area to watch is this declining trend line. If and when price gets under that declining trend line, this whole pattern of an inverse head and shoulders pattern is negated, and this measured move would then be wiped off the charts there too. But as long as price maintains above that trend line, we still are in the clear for a potential move up on silver, a substantial one all the way up there to $38.97. Into U.S. oil still struggles underneath this declining trend line, as you see there, and also a bear flag forming on this chart. So we'll see if U.S. oil can attempt to push higher. That would be good for all of the producers here in the United States to have a higher price for each barrel of oil. We'll see if that comes to pass in the near future. But right now, all we're doing is hanging out beneath and trading sideways. So into Nat Gas. Nat Gas had a decent fall today. As I said yesterday, we don't have much time before price has to make a decision to break down or break up above this declining trend line. So far right now, we're breaking down, but we could easily pop right back in that wedge tomorrow. We have 9 days to the conclusion of these trend lines. So we'll be watching this closely. If we continue moving lower tomorrow, support is going to be, again, right here at $3.38, followed by $3.13. If you're bull for Nat Gas, you want to see price get back in this trend line above it. That area is $3.69. Into the 10-year yield. The 10-year yield did move up ever so slightly today, but most importantly, maintaining underneath this declining trend line. It's imperative that should price action break above this trend line, we would open the door for higher moves up. First resistance at this pivot high at 4.812%, but still on the radar would be all the way up here at the 5.289% figure. And we'll see tariffs will probably enlighten that situation and provide us with a lot more details as to what to expect moving forward. Into Synopsys. Now, as I mentioned before, this was the company that did have its shares of chip design software makers from Cadence, Synopsys. They all fell this afternoon. And the reason they did that was because the Trump administration halted the sales over there into China. So Synopsys, as you see here, big daily candle move down. But let's look at the 10-minute so you can see when that occurred. And as we see right here, price was just floating down ever so easily. And here, let me flip back over to the charts. Flip back to this 10-minute Synopsys. Price is floating down ever so easily right here. Then that news broke right here, and you can see a big plummet in price, dropping from over $500 all the way down under $450 before receiving a technical bounce up in the charts. So if we flip back over to the daily, you can see here the first major support on Synopsys is going to be down here at 424.83. But also this pattern is presenting an inverse head and shoulders pattern at the moment. We didn't get right back up to this trend line to test it. However, that is the line in the sand on the way up. So watch price action on Synopsys in the coming days. If pressure is still on this stock, the likelihood we are going down to 424.83 increases exponentially, especially with the reduction of sales on the horizon. In the AVGO, now this stock was one of the best performers for the mega caps today. It did break out of this bull flag pattern, didn't move above these pivots, and now is closing above these pivots. So what we want to see tomorrow for any AVGO bulls, we need to get a close above this high, which is at $240.99. If that happens, that will open the door for a measured move up to 261.31, which would be brand new all-time highs for AVGO. But with the headwinds that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, these pending tariffs, I just don't see how this is possible. It can happen, but markets continue to surprise me day in and day out. We can stay higher longer than expected, and we can also go lower than expected. So I have this on the radar, as this pattern would produce that measured move all the way up there to brand new all-time highs. Into Tesla, here's something to show you what happens when we do have a breakout without a confirmation. So far, Tesla has yet to confirm above this green breakout candle. Price is coming right back down in. That makes this area very weak support, and price can just go straight back down right into this bullish consolidation area and even lower on the charts of Tesla. We need to see a confirmation above this green candle. If that occurs tomorrow, then we have room to run up to the 383.76, followed by this bull flag measured move up into 415.35. But needless to say, fantastic move on Tesla from the low registered here on April 7th, all the way down at $215, now trading roughly $140 higher on the charts. Into NVIDIA. We covered NVIDIA yesterday. However, price action really didn't change that much, and I wanted to bring this back up to show you today when the earnings do come out. And I believe they're around 4:20 in the afternoon, so we still have some time yet. But everybody pay attention to NVIDIA. Sometimes earnings for NVIDIA have been lackluster, have been somewhat muted with a response with investors. But today, this will be a big mover. Everybody in the markets was somewhat asleep. There were some movers, but the general market really didn't move that much until we had that news break this afternoon from Trump. So it's important to remember, too, with NVIDIA holding so much market cap weighting, its movement will influence the price direction of other stocks too, simply because those stocks are in the S&P 500. And if NVIDIA is going to be pulling down the S&P 500, all the other ETFs that hold Spider's positions will then be selling those individual stocks too. So just keep that in mind. Understand the weighting of how these big cap companies can really push the price on stocks up or down, even if they're in different sectors. All right, so back into NVIDIA. On the upside, first resistance level is going to be 138.90, but should we get above and confirm, a medium-term target is going to be at 151.71. On the downside, watching this 126.88, that very well could get tagged if we have bad earnings and investors start piling on the sell button right there. All right, into cryptocurrency, I find is remarkable and is holding up very well in this space for altcoins. It's Bittensor. Bittensor, as you see here too, has had a significant recovery from the lows here on April 7th, moving up as high as 200% with this move right here. Now we have back down from this area, and this has also created an inverse head and shoulders pattern on this chart. Now, should buying pressure still remain in Bittensor, the Tau USDT, we could end up breaking through this trend line. That's the trend line to watch right here for the upside. Currently right around $490 on the chart. If we do move up and break above there, the measured move would take this all the way up to $811. So nearly doubling where price is currently. So keep this on the radar. If we do end up falling, first support is going to be $372, followed by under $300, right around $275. Those will be the areas that still can catch support to allow Bittensor to reattack this trend line. And keep in mind, if Bitcoin falters, the likelihood that altcoins are going to falter too. So, but still, you have to pay attention to where potential moves can happen with these other smaller coins and cryptocurrencies, as they can generate significant returns. Into JOBY. Now, JOBY did release news today. They had a $250 million commitment from Toyota for their electronic air taxis. Now, another company that's in that space too is Archer, and we'll touch on that here in a moment. That's one of JOBY's competitors. However, notice the move today, up 28.78%. Significant move on JOBY. The RSI on the daily is now in overbought territory, but it is not on the weekly territory, telling me we still have room to run. So if I scroll back out on the weekly chart, you notice what's developing here. We have a pivot high to another pivot, and it's strung right down through. You notice price pierced it here at the beginning of this year in January, and has since retreated down and then bounced right back up off this inclining trend line of support here. So that means the next area of resistance, the next significant major area of resistance for JOBY is going to be at this declining trend line, currently this week priced right at $9.60. So if we get up here and move above, JOBY will have a lot of room to run. Now, into one of their competitors, Archer Aviation. Archer already had a significant breakout from a declining trend line right here, and it ran right into resistance from this longer term inclining trend line that we see displayed on the daily chart. Now, Archer, when it did break out from this declining trend line, it released news that the UAE and Abu Dhabi is secured for running this electronic air taxi service this summer. We have not yet passed FAA regulations for this type of vehicle here in the United States, but the UK is also looking to adapt this particular aircraft with Archer for electronic taxi service, whether that be through people or with products also. So something to keep on the radar, especially if JOBY starts catching some speed and also moving up higher on the charts. You can anticipate its competitor Archer will likely start doing the same thing, much like a sympathy play, if you all have heard of that here in the stock market. All right, so that wraps up Trading the Close. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Drew. I look forward to bringing you some more info tomorrow once we have those NVIDIA earnings. Until then, watch those charts, and I'll be here again tomorrow. Take care.
Hey guys, Lawton here with Verified Investing, here to talk to you a little bit about Bluefin, our preferred crypto exchange. It's the only crypto exchange we've ever partnered with and the only thing we use when we're trading. You can watch us day trade crypto live, and everything is through Bluefin. And I want to tell you a little bit about the different collaborations we have with Bluefin. This past weekend, we just finished up a campaign where we matched up to $500 for new members. So that means if you signed up and put $500 in, we gave you $500 in free futures trades. Of course, it's non-withdrawable, but the profits definitely are. Let's take a look at the computer and let's see what's going on in the crypto markets today. So taking a look here, you know, my favorite thing about Bluefin is that it's integrated with TradingView. Everything looks the same as it would on my computer. And you see I have this nice upsloping trend line, and I'm looking for a short on Bitcoin. For me, just looking at this chart, maybe I'll look to short it around 2% higher, closer to that 99,000 level. But by the time you see this, I might be totally wrong or totally right. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Bluefin for working with us, and I hope you guys have a great day.